What's up, fellow lords of gaming, and welcome back to another episode of Marvel Future Fight. Oh, glorious day that it is as we get ready for the Black Panther Wakanda Forever update. So let's jump right on in because there's a lot of information to cover and I want to make sure that we get to all of it. So first up, basically, we got the information that we are getting tier 4 Namor, tier 3 Shuri. We are also getting a new hero in M'Baku. We're getting a uniform for Riri Williams along with her Transcendence. And at the same time, Moon Girl is also receiving her Transcendence. Along with that, we are getting updates for new CTPs. So the Egg, CTP of Refinement, is getting its, brilliance and mighty CTPs. Same for Rage, with new abilities called Enrage and Vitality attached to them. There's a new Legendary Battle as well, which comes along with a host of great rewards to include a CTP of Destruction and a second potential realization ticket. One bad note inside of this update that I particularly see, or two. One is going to be the fact that Hulk, unfortunately, is receiving his nerf for his ultimate ability, his striker ability. Unfortunately, I wish that they had just left this alone. He is finally the strongest one that there is, as he should be, and it should reflect that, but that's not the case. Second, depending on how you look at this, we are now receiving a second option in order to have a second card deck. And we'll get to that in a few. I don't know why they gave us a second card deck other than it's an easy way to monetize this when we've been asking for a secondary custom slot for our characters throughout. But instead we got custom card deck number 2. I don't know. So let's jump right on in. But that was a preview of the information to come. So M'Baku, I'm a little disappointed that we're getting M'Baku in this form because basically it's a tier 2 character. And at this point in the game, tier 2 characters don't have a lot of value to them because you can't use them inside World Boss Legend. You can't use them inside a lot of content. It doesn't really make sense to have a tier 2 character. I wish that he was coming along with his Transcendence or something of the sort, but no. And it's not like M'Baku's that type of character where we're going to come back to him at some point. Unless we see a uniform for him or something like that in the a uniform for him in the mid-month or something like that, we're really not seeing M'Baku again. I mean, they skipped over the character in the original Black Panther movie. But let's take a look at this character, which is really great because this is the first time, to my knowledge, where we could actually acquire a character from the Legendary Battle. So basically, when you get to Wrath of the Sea, Stage 3, you can acquire a 1-star M'Baku from there. He's a combat superhero, leadership, strong abilities, and justice instinct. His leadership, basically 30% increase of physical attack. Not a whole lot to write home about there because we've seen plenty of characters with way higher increases in physical attack than this. However, with his Wild Warrior tier 2 passive, which applies to all allies, we can see that there's an increased basic damage dealt to supervillain faction by 45% and a decreased basic damage received from supervillains faction by 35%. So basically we get about a 75% increase in total damage, but this still could have been higher in my opinion. Second off, we get his Strength of the Human, of Hanuman, which is like the Panther God Bast. So he gets super armor, increase all basic defenses by 30% and an increase to skill damage by 30 and bonus damage by 25. His first ability, Club of Whirlwind, not a whole lot to write home about, just paralysis, which ignores immunity. Thank you for that. Basically, you could use this character for World Boss Ultimate, right? Not to be confused with World Boss Legend. So next we get Noberry Blow, which has just stun on it, so not a whole lot to write home. Basically, most of his skills are going to rotate around his 3, 4, and his 5. So Nature's Wrath is a snare, paralysis, ignores immunity, and then we get decrease all defense down for 50% with a 100% chance to grant all damage immunity and a basic attack by 50%. On Landslide Charge, his 4th skill, not a whole lot really there except for the increased basic damage by 100%. So my anticipation is that you're going to really roll from Gorilla Smash, which holds his accumulation, and a nice recovery of 25%. You're going to roll from 5, probably into 3, and then into 4. But we'd have to see the animation for these skills to make sure. But My guess is going to be 534 is basically what you're rotating with this character if you intend to use him for that. I think that he's going to probably be used for support more than anything else in World Boss Ultimate, maybe a Shadowlands leadership, Shadowlands character, but tier 2 characters at this point, not so much. So now we get 3 new uniforms, right? So to be honest with you, I wasn't really as amped for this uniform. Looking at it inside the video premiere that we got last night, yeah, it is what it is. But let's go over this. I'm going to use this time to basically compare to what we currently have for Namor. And give you guys some overview there. So his Sea of Fire is now called the King of Atlantis Command. There's not a whole lot of change inside here. Applies to enemies. We still get 50, 20, 40. So there's not really a whole lot of change. It's 3 seconds. To all allies, they still get the guaranteed dodge rate 50, 30, and then the remove all debuffs by 3 seconds. He still keeps the 80% chance to penetrate, and the accumulation 10% for 1% inside there. So there's not a whole lot of change here other than the fact that, you know what, it's called King of Atlantis. Now the one big change to note inside here is that instead of being fire damage, he is now dealing cold damage. Okay, so moving on to his passive. So we've got his first passive down here, which is called aquatic durability. Still remains the same, 50. So what? Actually, excuse me. This is received a buff. This is no. Yeah, this is receiving a buff. So it was 25-25. It is now going to be 50 and 35. So a nice little, definitely a nice big buff for the basic defenses, and a little bit of a buff there for his basic damage received. So should be more durable. Basically, Namor should be. Secondary passive, Fury of Atlantis, right? So not a whole lot has changed here. Well, I guess it's a whole lot because the critical damage is now going up to 40%, which is a lot, but then we still keep the 30 and the 100%. So the critical damage is quite a bit because, like, in terms of building the character, you really don't have to worry about it anymore because you're basically only have to do like 160% critical damage to hit that max cap now with the character. So that should make it pretty easy. So let's take a look at some of his skills. Spear Strike, nothing's changed there. It's just cold damage change out. His second strike, Trident Blast, is now called Talakan Spear, and it increases the skill damage by 40% and increases bonus damage by 40. The cold damage is what really changed, and you lose out on this. No. I am off here. I'm looking at Trident's Blast and I'm thinking about Talakan Spear, and it's really called Hydro Tornado. So my bad. Sorry about that. So it's Snare for 5 seconds, right? Instead of the 3 seconds. We also get the remove active buff from target. He gets the recovery of 20% HP and a 100% chance to grant all damage immunity. So you're going to end up working his second skill somehow into his rotation. His third ability, which was called Flaming Wave and had nothing on it, is now called Talakan Spear, and that one has the increased skill damage by 40, the bonus damage by 40 as well, and the cold damage is 65% with an additional 323. So that's like a nerf from the fire damage. I don't know why that is. Maybe because it was the Phoenix protocol was so high. I don't know, but that 65 seems really low. I don't know. So his fourth skill, which was called Kraken Attack, is now called Rage of the King. It has Silence, Fracture, and Paralysis, which ignores immunity. We still keep the barrier effect on that skill, and we have the cold damage. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, but we get more than what he had previously, right? His fifth skill, which is called Burning Trident, is now called Whale Tsunami. Yeah, so looking at this ability, it was very interesting, right? So let me point this out to you. So basically, he went from applying this self buff. So he had a self buff where he was getting fire resist, and he was giving himself all basics 55, 70, and 20, right? He's going to retain that. However, with this uniform, he was getting all allies were also receiving a buff, which was 55, 70, and 20. That's no longer there, which is funny because, to be honest with you, Namor is not that kind of dude. At least not in the comic books. He's not that kind of dude. He's not really out here buffing up freaking, teammates. Like, Namor's an asshole and he's just buffing up himself. So it's a little weird, but it's also funny at the same time, right? So just, keep that in mind as I talk about this stuff, right? Namor's an asshole. So his tier 4 advancement He basically gets activation rate when the striker skill is used. It applies to self, increase the active buff effect by 20% for 10 seconds, and increase chain hit damage by 50% when attacking. This is important because I want you to pay attention that it says increases the active buff effect by 20%. Typically what that means is that if you were to go inside your preview skills, you would have hit a target. Like you can see these buffs right here, right? So you can see Furious of Atlantis is given a 30% chance right here. You're getting these things from his, his abilities. So essentially, your other skills are going to have buffs on them, and you'll notice them as soon as you trigger an event or a skill, right? And it'll appear over here. So for instance, over there, you can see Kraken attack gives him barrier, right? Over there, you can see his third skill. Doesn't really give him anything. Fourth skill, I don't think gives him anything either. Then we look at his fifth skill, and we can see these buffs over here, right? Burning Trident, his fire resist, and then we can see the buff from increase all basic attacks. What I anticipate this to mean is that you're going to have to activate his striker skill before you, after you have to activate his striker skill after you use skills that buff him, so that way they get that 20% buff on him. So whereas opposed to, like, I think a lot of other characters we've been getting that striker skills used first and then rotate it into the skills, you'll use your skills and rotate them into the buff effect. Like essentially that's how it works. Like, because that buff should have to be active, but we'll see how it works inside there. It'll be interesting to note. Anyways, moving right along, Shuri. Yeah, Shuri is getting a tier 3 in this update. I don't think a lot of people will be mad about that, especially because Shuri was primarily one of those support characters that was just absolutely phenomenal. Now you're going to be able to use her inside World Boss Legend and some of those higher stages, and I think this is just going to make the character overall really nice. So this would be Shuri's third uniform, the uniform effect that she currently has. Super armor, increase all basic defenses. Wasn't a whole lot there, you know what I mean? But her new uniform effect is she's going to have super armor, increase all basic defense by 40%, and she's going to increase skill damage by 35 and bonus damage by 30. So when we take a look at her skills, so she previously had the skill Panther's God Protection, right? And this skill gave 45 and 35. So now Panther's God Protection is going to give 55 and 40. So a little bit of a boost, enough that I think a lot of people are going to want to have her in support and damage dealing roles. So it'd be basically perfect, like, to put Shuri on a team, have her in support as the support damage dealer, and then, if something happens to your main damage dealer, you basically use them. But that's basically the way I look at it. But we'll see how she plays out overall. Now, her Genius Princess skill, she previously only had the ignore target's dodge rate by 30%. That gets increased to 35, and she also gains the chain hit damage by 15% when attacking. So not a bad skill overall there. So let's take a look at her skills and the reworks that she has. Basically, Panther Foray, not a whole lot on that skill as it now becomes Masterful Attack. Royal Martial Artist, not a whole lot to write about there. It now has Silence and Incapacitation, so still not a whole lot to write about. Her output enhancement now becomes Panther Punch. It gains Fracture on this skill, and then she increases basic damage by 80% for one attack, and she has a physical damage for 100%. So she loses that Frenzy buff of 15-15, and that decreased basic damage received is basically rotated for a damage buff of 80%. So 40%, her fourth skill, which was called High Velocity Blow, is now called Motorcycle Rush, and this is where we see the majority of the changes, right? So here we can see Burn is dealt. We also all defense down for 60%. She gets a nice recovery of 30% of HP, increases all basic attacks and defenses by 40, 10, and critical rate by 10. So you can see that basic, the move of that Frenzy buff to her fourth skill. She gets 100% chance to grant all damage immunity on that fourth skill as well. Now her fifth skill was called Panther Blast. It is now called Kimoyo EMP. So it's going to deal burn damage, it's going to deal shock damage, it's also going to have paralysis, which ignores immunity. She's going to still collect that. She's going to collect a barrier for 5 times for 8 seconds, increase all basic attacks by 40%, and she has the physical damage on that. So that's pretty nice. Her tier 3 ultimate, or tier 3 skill, I guess, whatever you want to call it, not too bad. She basically summons Bats, the Panther Goddess, however you want to look at it. And Bass pretty much does the damage for her. She basically, I think I just read you the wrong thing inside the skill. I'm pretty sure I did. I read you off her tier 3 inside there, not her 5th skill. I feel bad about that. No, I didn't. No. I lied. So her tier 3 basically has bleed, stun, silence, has 80% chance to penetrate, and then it has her accumulation of 10% pure damage when attacking, and then 0.7% increase of all basic attacks. So that's basically where her tier 3 is looking for. Interested to see how Shuri's going to play, because I think her rotation might be a little bit different. So let's pay attention to that, right? Next up, what we got? Riri Williams. Yes, Ironheart is getting a nice little update here. I want to pay attention particularly to her leadership, which not really so happy about, right? But her leadership ability was previously energy attack to all allies. It's now going to only be to blast type, and she gets a 55% increase of energy attack. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because I suspect that Riri Williams is going to be a support character inside the Wakanda Forever movie, and a support character to Wakanda. But this leadership that she has isn't going to apply to anybody in the current Wakanda tribe, basically, because Shuri is speed and Jesus Christ, Shuri is speed and M'Baku is combat, so this won't apply to any of those characters at all. Her uniform effect, she gets applied to all allies, ignore target's dodge rate by 25%, and increase basic damage dealt to boss types by 35%. So she looks primed to be a nice support leader, support character for World Boss Legend. So let's take a look at some of her others, like Stark Protocol, for instance, is now called Mechanical Engineering. She loses the dodge rate increase by 16%, but she gains increased chain hit damage by 15% and guard break immunity. Model Prime Armor is now called Advanced Upgrade, and she gets guaranteed dodge rate by 25 and a skill damage by 35 and bonus damage by 30. So that's pretty nice, right? So then we move over into Cold Repulsor Blast, which is her new first skill. Not a whole lot there, so we just skip over that one, right? Then we get to her 2 skill, not a whole lot there either. Stun, Silence, and that's pretty much it. When we get to her 3rd skill is where we start to get nice and spicy, because we get Shock, Stun, Paralysis, which ignores immunity. She also gains Invincibility, and her accumulation, 1.1% of pure damage is accumulated. Her 4th skill is going to be called Maximum Output. She gains Incapacitation, Paralysis, and 100% chance to grant all damage immunity inside here. So you're gonna have a hard time hitting this chick. So then we get to Cyclone Burst is her new 5th skill. Again, there wasn't a whole lot on this character in the first place because she was released so long ago, but we get stunned for 3 seconds, decrease all defense down for 50%. She gets a nice recovery of 20% HP, and she gets a frenzy buff of basic attack, basic defense by 50, speed by 5, and critical rate by 35. So that's not too bad at all. I actually like and enjoy her awakening or transcendence as well. Like her transcendence, along with Moon Girl, who is getting a new transcendence inside here, is kind of pretty cool. They both look pretty much the same, as is often the case with Transcendence. She gets Burn, Stun, Paralysis, which ignores immunity, a defense down for 60%, crit rate by 35, crit damage by 35, ignore target's dodge rates by 70, 70% chance to penetrate as well, invincible, and remove all debuff. Moon Girl is going to get a nice differential in terms of ignore target's dodge rates. She still gets the 70%, but then she gets an invincible for 8 seconds, remove all buffs, which was there already. She also gets an increased basic damage by 50 for 1 attack, and an increase all basic attacks and basic defenses by 25 for 40 seconds. They both get those actually, so never mind, I lied. So those are all your characters for this update. I will do individual reviews and impression on all 4 as we go forward. So let's take a look now at the additions to the game. Basically, we've got the legendary battle. Wrath of the Sea is going to be released. We can acquire 1-star M'Baku when we get to the 3rd stage on normal mode. That's pretty cool. We also have the upgrade package, which you can see here is going to carry like some CTP of Destructions, a special icon of Riri Williams, Williams, the artifacts that I'm not very ecstatic about for Shuri, and then a potential realization ticket as well. So that's pretty nice. I don't know why anybody would purchase a special offer of M'Baku just to have a tier 2 M'Baku. It doesn't make sense. Make it make sense, Netmarble. I don't get it. They do realize the value of these have severely diminished with tier 4s being released and tier 3s and Transcendence being in the game. Why would I pay this kind of crystals for a tier native, not even a native tier 2, a free to play? I don't get it. So 3 stages, and these are the rewards, right? So you can see, I said the biometrics for Shuri is there, her artifact is in there, second potential realization, the special icon Triumph of Science for Riri Williams, and the CTP of Destruction. Obviously CTP of Destruction is really nice, right? So I like that. Now moving right along to the big surprise, I think, for this update, which is the refinement, the egg, CTP of egg, right? And the rage reforging is now going to be available, adding 2 new abilities inside the game. You basically have Vitality, which is a HP recovery, 15% on a mighty CTP, 25% on a brilliant CTP, right? And we all get those damn eggs, but at least now when we get those eggs, we're not going to be crying about it too much, right? Because if we look at that brilliant CTP, we see a max HP recovery, a nice recovery rate of 103.5, right? We also get the activation rate is when HP is below 50%, applies to self, recovers 30% of HP and a barrier 10 times, right? Now, here goes the important thing about this, right? We also get this increase all basic attack defenses. The important thing about this is that it's funny, right? Let me move this out the way over here. I don't know why it's been doing that for me lately, but let's take a look at Hulk, for instance, right? So Hulk, I currently have a mighty CTP of regeneration on him. You can see he's got the max HP of 33%. You can see his HP recovery rate is HP below 40, and he gets the recovers of 5% HP, and then he creates a shield equal to 15%, right? So the question I have for this is that, will a CTP of egg be better for a character like Hulk now moving into this new meta? Because the max HP rate, yeah, I could probably get higher on this max HP for here, right? But the recovery rate on this is absolutely astounding, 103, right, on its brilliant CTP. But then when you're also looking at this, right, the recovery of HP below 50% and is recovering 30% of the HP instead of 5%. I don't know. I think we might have to look at, for some of these characters, whether or not a mighty CTP is needed on a character. Now, pay attention though, is that this CTP right here, we basically get the Pierce effect inside here, right? So those numbers is increased by concentration. Yeah, concentration, not Pierce. So that's important when you're looking at your card effects, because I did pay attention that I did say that, you know what, one of the things that they're doing is going to be that you can have 2 different card stacks now. So you could potentially have one card stack that's focused on concentration and one stack that's focused on pierce damage for the different types of characters. I'm very interested to see how this is going to play out, right? But either way, that gets us into the next roll over here, where we're literally looking at the CTPs and the comic cards added, right? So we also have the brilliant CTP of Rage and the mighty CTP of Rage. We have the Enrage, which increases critical damage by 80% on a mighty CTP of Rage, and it ignores the max limit, 80 freaking percent. That's crazy, right? Or increase all basic attacks and defenses by 20%, and then we can also get that brilliant CTP, which looks like it's maxed out at 36, 25% rate when dealing. We get a damage accumulation on there, and then we get the ignore boss damage decreased by 65%, but then you can see that 130% increase of critical damage, which also can go up additional amount up equal to 60% of concentration. So these CTPs are really looking nice, and it's probably going to fuel the comic card decks that can be added in there. Basically, of note to pay attention to this is that basically you cannot have the same card in both decks. You can have a card deck 1 and a card deck 2, and the cards need to be different. Now, this is good for Marvel Future Flight, the developers, because it gives a way to monetize, to continue the monetization effort behind cards. Might piss off some of the player base because we're like, yo, I'm tired of it. Like we saw Moonbro quit the game at one point because he's like, I don't really feel invested anymore and trying to level up cards anymore. But look, man, the game's got to make money somehow to be in sustainment for 7 years. Like, that's just the truth of the matter, right? So I'm not mad about it. It'll apply to certain players and it'll apply to others. Now, how this applies to certain content, I can only guess at this point, but I don't really see much in the way outside of here where Pierce wouldn't matter that much unless they make some changes later on. I can't see how concentration would trump most things inside the game. I think it's down to the character really more than it is down to the specific type of content that you're playing, but I could be wrong. So anyways, moving right along, we got some of the new artifacts. I have not been shy about admitting I do not like the artifact system. M'Baku shows that he is going to be a support character through and through, applies to all allies, ignore target's dodge rate by 20%, and increase all basic attacks by 15%. Namor is grabbing an artifact, obviously applies to selves, increase basic damage dealt to boss types by 25%. Shuri is getting one, the Blossoming Talent, which we can get from the legendary battles, ignore target's dodge rate by 25%, increase all basic attacks by 20%. It looks like a nice passive skill effect for Shuri, and seems like they baked that into her kit, right? Ironheart is basically getting increased basic damage dealt to enemies with 50% HP or higher by 25%, and Moon Girl is getting ignore target's dodge rate by 25%, and then increase basic damage dealt to supervillain faction by 20%. We've got a new season pass, guys, and it's got Mystique as a special icon at the legendary pass level, and on the mythic pass level we have a Human Torch icon. So there you have it for those if you're really interested in them. This icon for Namor, however, is looking pretty sweet. So this will the Namor icon will most likely be in the the shop that will come later on, but this one looks amazing to me. I actually think it looks pretty cool, right? Mystique is there. I'm not sure why Ironheart and Human Torch, but we'll take a look at them when the update releases, right? So like I said, I'm really not excited about the Namor uniform that much, and it's not because I don't like the way Tenoch Huerta looks inside the uniform and how the image looks inside the Wakanda Forever. It's just the translation to the game. It looks very blocky in my opinion, but that's just me. Maybe it's because so much of his skin is showing, and yeah, I don't know. It's just Namor and his other uniforms didn't look all that great either when they first released them, from being perfectly honest. We also have dimension improvements. I don't really consider these improvements. I consider them like quality of life changes for a dimension version. We also have like the upgrade character selectors. Those have some quality of life improvements. You're now able to select upgradable heroes as a category inside there. The Alliance Battle Normal mode is being decreased from 10 minutes to 5 minutes. I'm not sure exactly why this matters, because I don't know how many players are actually taking 5+ minutes, if 5 minutes at all, to complete normal battle in Alliance Battle. I don't know who's doing that. I don't really get it, but it is what it is, right? So that's about everything that's going on inside this update. Of note to finish out here, pay particularly attention that Hulk will receive an adjustment to his tier 4 striker skill, which was higher than it was intended to be, and we're finally getting that update. Black Bolt inside here is also getting an adjustment to his, however, it's just text wording. It will still function according to them the same as it currently does. And I'm loving my Black Bolt, to be perfectly honest. So be prepared. We've got a few hours before the update goes live, and we'll roll into this. I promise I will bring you guys content with all of the characters across the board. Until next time, peace.